In today's episode, during listener Q&A, Daniel and I continue our deep dive into floor restoration. We'll talk about floor finishes and pets.
And later, Amanda kicks off spooky season with a story about living in her ancestral family home.
But first, I'm Stacy Grinsfelder.
And I'm Daniel Cantor.
This is True Tales from Old Houses, episode 103. Hey, Daniel.
Stacinator, what's good?
Oh, no, you remembered my nickname.
I'll never forget.
I don't know why I spit that out so easily. I probably should have kept that a little closer to the vest, but here I am.
Now, I need to ask you, who called you Stacinator? You said they used to.
Okay, so I should have clarified this. In the mini-sode last week, we talked about nicknames, and mine was Stacinator. And I received that nickname at a job. I worked in a restaurant. I was a server, and one of the cooks used to call me Stacinator, and then it kind of caught on.
Love it. Okay, I'm going to use it and abuse it. Before we launch into today's episode, we just want to say a thank you to our Season 10 sponsors, the Craftsman Store and Sutherland Wells. They keep the lights on over here. We love our sponsors, so please check out their respective businesses.
Indeed. Thank you both. We have a couple of announcements today, as always. And the first one is that we are still looking for young tradespeople to interview this season. And as we talked about a couple weeks ago, young is relative, especially to me. And so the parameters are basically under 40 years old. And we're looking for people who chose to go into the trades right after high school, or that maybe they entered the trades after 3 years or less of college, or maybe a different career path. We talk to people on this show all the time who've had several careers and then entered the trades later in life. And we kind of want to flip the script and do it the other way around. So if you are a young tradesperson, or you know someone who might be a great guest, please let us know via the contact form over on truetalesfromoldhouses.com.
In addition, our evergreen announcement, please take the time to subscribe and leave a rating or review of this podcast. We love to see ratings and reviews come in. It's a great way for other people to discover the show, and we just sure appreciate it.
And I don't know that everybody knows what subscribe actually does. Subscribe automatically puts our show in your podcast app of choice, and then you will get a notification that there's a new episode. So if you don't see it on social media, or maybe you're on a road trip and you're thinking, what am I going to listen to? Then all of the latest episodes of True Tales from Old Houses will be right in your favorite podcast app.
Exactly.
Daniel, did you have an announcement again about the land bank houses? Did you want to tell us about those again one more time?
Oh, I have a couple of revolving announcements, I guess. So number one is, I mentioned this last time, I think, the land bank is currently selling 4 houses. And so one of them is as is, needs a lot of work, but is the most beautiful house. So that is 111 Downs Street in Kingston. So beautiful. And then the other 3 are fully rehabbed. I like to say pretty well restored. And those will be selling to first-time homeowners who meet the income and eligibility requirements. So if you know anybody in this area for whom homeownership is probably out of reach, they might actually be able to do that with this program. The houses are less than half of market value. So get to it. You can find more information on those at kclb.org/homes.
All right. And is the information about 111 Downs also at that link?
111 Downs is listed on the open market, so you can find it on Zillow, Trulia, Realtor.com, any of those.
Excellent. Good deal.
And then one more thing real fast. I believe tomorrow the Cheap Old Houses book is coming out. So my home is featured in it. I'm very excited to see that, obviously. But if you are sort of in this community at all on Instagram, you will see lots and lots of people who you follow. It's sort of like a big class reunion of all the old house Instagrammers, I am pretty sure, in there.
It's the yearbook of Instagram, Cheap Old Houses, huh?
Exactly.
Great. Well, I'll put the pre-order link right in our show notes. So be sure and order a copy of that. I'm looking forward to receiving mine.
Me too.
I don't have any more announcements. Do you?
I don't think so.
Okay. Let's take just a quick couple of minutes to maybe talk about our projects?
Oh, sure. How's yours going?
Oh, gosh. Okay. Another thing we did on the minisode was that we agreed to hold each other accountable. We were going to talk behind the scenes and determine what tasks we would have done so that when we checked in with each other, we could update.
Yeah, remember how we had that great team meeting? We really set out our goals and intentions. We had big poster boards on the walls. Remember that?
I think I was sick that day. I don't recall that meeting.
Oh,
And since we are a team of two, I guess it's
right.
safe to say we did not have a meeting. We did not do our homework. We did not do what we said we were going to do.
Not at all. Literally, we failed the very first task of the accountability partnership. So I would say this is off to a great start.
Right.
And
How were you at college team projects? Pretty bad? I wasn't the best.
horrendous. It was like torture. I took over every single one, resented everybody else on my team. The fact that you and I are able to do this is like a real sign of personal growth for me because, like, we don't have drama, but I think that's because you do all the work.
Look who took over now, right?
I'm so happy in a backseat. So, what have you done? Let's start there.
Well, I've done a lot of thinking about my project, and my project is the sleeping porch. It was kind of one of those went from bad to worse situations, and now it's deconstructed. Daniel and I talked all about that during the minisode last week. So basically, what I have decided is how to do the project. I haven't written it down. I haven't written a list. I think I've decided I'm going to use cedar, and I've kind of thought about where I'm going to purchase the cedar. And I've also considered whether I'm going to fix some rot with epoxy or whether I'm going to completely replace wood. And that's pretty much what I've done. So I've thought about it to death. In fact, last night, I don't know if you remember, but I said, oh, I'm going to regret this project. Sure enough, last night I woke up, my brain was exploding. Like it was like, do this, do this, do this, do this. It's going to fall apart. You're not going to have time. It's going to get cold. There, you can't paint. It was insanity. It took me an hour and a half to go back to
Yeah.
sleep. Not fun.
Yeah. Are you a like, if you wake up and just write it all down in a list, can you kind of put it out of your mind or it just continues to percolate?
No, I don't get up and turn the lights on or write a list or anything like that. I just always have high hopes that I'm going to go right back to sleep, and then that doesn't happen. But anyway, how about you?
I think this is normal. I do the same thing. I mean, I feel like people don't appreciate enough the amount of thought and planning that goes into any renovation. So
Agree.
don't say I just have been thinking, because that's like half the battle is figuring out what you're going to do, what order you're going to do it in. Then it never actually goes that way. But the planning part is very important. So I'm proud of you is what I'm saying.
Oh, thank you. How's your project going?
Oh, it's going. So this is crazy. For the second time now, Stacy, the drywaller has started early. When does
Really?
this happen?
Never.
When does this ever happen? It's crazy. I love him. So it turned the past week a little upside down because he was going to start Saturday and then he ended up starting Thursday. So I had to get all my pre-work done 2 days early, which I was happy to do, but I was also like, oh dear, this is not what I'm supposed to be doing today. So consequently, the first floor apartment is sheetrocked. And then I can't even remember if I mentioned this, but the second floor apartment has the same crappy drop ceiling. I'm not supposed to say crappy. The same lousy drop ceiling. And that one never even got painted because he's been living there continuously. And so I basically was like, here's the deal. We're getting the sheetrock done on the first floor. And I would like to do your kitchen ceiling too, because I think the insulation is basically gone. But like, it's going to be kind of a week of pain.
Mm-hmm.
And they had sort of mentioned before how they didn't like it and everything. So they were like, go for it. We understand. We're totally. So Saturday was a crazy day because they're living there. I was like, this all has to happen like clockwork. So I hired out the demo, it was just the drop ceiling in the downstairs. I had all those layers. None of that was up there. So that was good.
Good.
But sure enough, the insulation was just completely eaten. Like
Gross.
you could tell there was some at some time, but it was totally gone. And so basically I had people demoing while I'm tucking electric back up into the joists and drilling holes, and other people are insulating around me and then getting fussy because I'm not quite done and they have to get to that bay, and then they're hanging sheetrock in the other part of the room. Like, it was kind of madness. But in one day we demoed, we dealt with the electric, we insulated, got the sheetrock hung, and 2 coats of mud up. So that felt good. So I think basically there's 1 coat of mud to go. I am paying to have that upstairs kitchen sanded, primed, painted, just to keep it super fast and stay out of the tenant's way as much as possible. But yeah, it's drywall work. It's a mess.
So let me get this straight. You've demoed, you've sheetrocked, you've mudded, you've nearly painted, and you're proud of me for thinking?
Yes, that's true. Well, this is a much more straightforward task. It's drywall. And also I hired out the lion's share of it. So I can't take a ton of credit. But I had to do all this electrical work. I insulated the first floor myself because I, had a little bit of the luxury of time. I replaced the shower valve so that he could put cement board around the shower. There was just a lot of little things to take care of. And Jorge, the drywall man, was very impressed that I was doing insulation, electrical, and plumbing all in the same 3 hours.
I'm impressed.
Yeah, Jorge, I got this.
Oh my gosh, I'm so impressed. Well, look at us getting stuff done little by little.
Yeah. So it did pull me away from the cottage for a few days, but I'm back there. I'm painting. I'm just painting and painting and painting and painting and painting.
Great. Well, we'll talk about it next week.
Yeah. So back to our accountability partnership. Do we want to publicly set goals for next week?
Yes. Yes. I say yes, tentatively. All right. So here's the deal. My mother is coming to visit. I'm really excited about her being here. And so that will limit some of the time that I would normally have to do some actual work on things. Plus, I'm working on the Silver Lake windows.
Oh, the ongoing saga.
The ongoing saga of the Silver Lake windows. But here's what I will have done by next week. I will have taken measurements, and I will have at least drawn a picture of what I think I'm going to do. How's that?
I like it.
All right. Measurements are kind of half of it because then I have to know how thick the wood is and what I'm looking for replacements, all that stuff. So I think that's plenty to have done by next week. Doable, achievable goals. We're all about achievable goals. How about you?
Oh, gosh. Okay. So I am going to, by the next time we record, so Brad will be coming here, and I feel like the best use of our time is plumbing fixture installs, because Brad and I together are very good at retrofitting an old toilet and stuff. So at the cottage, we already have the clawfoot tub in, but the sink and the toilet need to go in upstairs, and then downstairs there's also a toilet and a sink. And what this means as well is that if I want to do the downstairs fixtures, I should really have that bathroom painted so that I'm not painting around a toilet.
Yeah, that's a pain.
So I have been moving in this very linear fashion out of the house, but I'm going to make a pit stop, I think, in the first floor bathroom.
Is that a pun intended?
Oh, gross. Oh, it is now. I don't know. I'm going to spend some time in the first floor bathroom, some personal time. So yeah, that should, I think, be hopefully achievable. It's ambitious, but yeah, if I can get there, that'd be great.
Okay. We'll see if we meet our goals the next time we record together.
Perfect.
All right. Well, it is time to take a break. So let's take one because listener Q&A is up next.
Let's do it.
True Tales from Old Houses is supported by The Craftsman Store, another excellent resource from Scott Seidler of the Craftsman blog. The Craftsman Store is your go-to place for old house tools and supplies.
Once again, our friend Scott has taken the hassle out of tracking down all the specialized old house supplies we need and put them all in one place for us. It's a cozy little online hardware store full of books, tools, and replacement parts.
True story. I got a message on Instagram the other day and somebody was looking for slotted flathead brass wood screws. They could not find them. And so I tap right into the craftsmanstore.com. And sure enough, those screws were right there.
Very good to know. I have also struggled to find those screws.
Well, there you go. Scott runs a top-notch small business. The customer service is an actual human and they ship fast.
From window restoration to plaster repair, they have everything you need to do the job like a pro. So check it out today at thecraftsmanstore.com and save 10% on your orders if you use the code TRUETALES.
True Tales from Old Houses is also supported by Sutherland Wells. All of Sutherland Wells products are handcrafted in Providence, Rhode Island with the highest quality sustainably grown tung oil. Tung oil, native to China, has been used for centuries as a durable finish for wood, metal, and stone.
Unlike polyurethane, tung oil finish penetrates the surface of the wood, so it flexes and contracts as conditions change, which makes it the perfect pre-finish or protectant for everything from fine furniture to window sash and sills.
Based on our conversation with Rob, when he was talking about uses for tung oil, I've decided to use it on the unpainted wainscoting in our main bathroom.
Oh, that'll be beautiful. Can you take a video of it going on and it's sucking into the wood?
Oh, absolutely. Ooh, that's fun. Yeah, around the tub surround, I need something that will soak into the wood and make it waterproof. And Sutherland Wells has an entire product line for whatever you're working on now. I happen to be working on a bathroom, but you may be working on siding, hardwood floors, furniture restoration, cutting boards, you name it.
To learn more about the complete product line, visit Sutherland Wells, that's WELLES, sutherlandwells.com. And to save 10% on your first order, use the coupon code TRUETALES.
We're back.
Hello, welcome back.
It's time for listener Q&A. Today, we are continuing an ongoing discussion about everything related to floor refinishing. And we received an excellent question from Sally.
What do you want to know now, Sally? Sorry, that was rude.
I liked it. Sally asked, what is the best wood floor finish to protect the wood from dog claws? I have soft pine floors, and the one section we finished with shellac is all scratched up from our dogs. That is our question today, Daniel.
Oh, you got to get rid of those dogs.
Yeah. Dogs and kids, we don't recommend.
Nah, get rid of them. Oh, boy. It's a good question.
It is a good question. It is. And I don't know that we can say, here is the best thing for you to use with your pets. But I think you and I both, because we've had experience with a variety of finishes, we can at least share how they've held up to our pets. How about we do that? And as we talk to other pros about wood floor refinishing, then we'll get their input too throughout the season. But for now, we're going to start with our own experience. So why don't you start?
Okay. So first I would say that soft pine floors just are difficult. And to some extent, you sort of need to accept that they're going to get a level of wear and patina because the wood is so soft. So I have soft pine on my stair treads, and I made the pretty foolish mistake, I think, of putting a water-based polyurethane. I use Bonatraffic HD on them. And I think the issue is essentially that the polyurethane is really, really hard, but the wood underneath it is very soft. And so they have scratched, they have, they're kind of a mess. So rugs are your friend. And I would say basically look for a finish that can be recoated. So shellac is actually a pretty good choice. It's not really used commonly for floors anymore, but it is a traditional finish. And the solvent for shellac is denatured alcohol. So you can buy that at any hardware store. I've heard of people actually using really lousy liquors that you can buy at the liquor store, like Everclear and stuff. But so you can, if you rub that on the shellac, it'll kind of liquefy it, and you can then sort of redistribute it, and you can also recoat it. It'll stick to itself beautifully. So you didn't make a bad choice, but I think other potential options there are certainly tung oil finishes like we heard about from Sutherland Wells. that could also include hard waxes or oils. So, like Rubio Monocoat is a pretty good option. There's other hard wax finishes. Osmo is one. I think they're Scandinavian. But I think at the end of the day, having soft wood on your floor is just challenging. That's why oak is sort of became the standard. But where I live too, soft pine is very common. Fir is very common, which is a type of pine. So we have the same struggles.
Yeah. So mine's Doug fir. I've used Rubio Monocoat downstairs. And what I do notice about it with my dog is that you don't have gouges in it. There are depressions in it. When she's an old dog. So whenever she gets up in the morning and gets out of her crate, she kind of spins her wheels like Fred Flintstone for a little bit before she, moving the car, the Flintstones car.
Millie.
I know, poor Millie. If I look just right, I see the depressions where her nails have gone into the wood, but I don't see them as scratches. So that's one thing that I've been really pleased about with the Rubio Monocoat. Now, I do have heart pine stair treads, and those are a disaster. And I use something very similar, but it's called Loba on top. You were trying to think of other hard oil wax finishes. And Loba is something similar. You'd put it on and then wipe it off, just like you would the Rubio. And it has not held up very well, but I think that's just the nature of my sweet old dog trying to get up and down stairs. And so, yeah, I'm in the same boat in a lot of ways, at least on those stair treads that you are. And the products we use could not have been more different. So as you said before, I think it's kind of a matter of just coming to terms with the idea that softwood and pet claws are not super compatible.
Yeah. I think I will eventually be adding a runner to my stairs because what are you going to do? Not have dogs?
No.
You got to have dog. At least one. I think that about covers it. So thank you so much for your question, Sally. We love getting questions, and I apologize the answer is a little unsatisfying, but that is what we know.
And we will continue to ask any professionals that we have on this season, and maybe they'll have some input so you can make the best decision for your home. If anyone else has a question about wood floor refinishing or anything related to old houses that you would like for us to answer on an upcoming episode, please do reach out to us via the contact form at truetalesfromoldhouses.com.
Stacy, as you know, I've been very excited because October is spooky season on True Tales from Old Houses.
It is. And this is your first season that you've been on as a co-host during October. So it's fun to have you here, someone who's so excited, just like our audience and just like I get every single year.
Let's make it the spookiest one yet. So our guest today is Amanda. After buying her grandparents' home, Amanda began experiencing some things she could not explain. Could one of her ancestors be gently communicating, or is it all mere coincidence? You decide.
Well, I'm Amanda, and I am here to talk about the journey I've been on in my ancestral homestead, which is a vernacular Italianate farmhouse. And it was built in 1869, and my two kids are the seventh generation to live and grow in it now.
7 generations.
Yes. Yep.
Let's start there then. How did your ancestral home end up getting passed down 7 generations? That's almost unheard of now.
Well, the interesting story is that I did not have the benefit of inheriting this home. When I was in high school, it actually left the family. My great-great Aunt Nana was sort of the matriarch of our family, and it was inherited by my grandmother's generation. There were 3 siblings, and they decided they wanted to sell it along with sort of a museum's worth of family possessions at an estate sale. And so I was a junior in high school when that happened. And I had grown up coming here, celebrating all of our family holidays. And I was heartbroken, and thought, it's not the last time I'm going to say goodbye to this house. So I just set out to purchase it one day. And it happened in a really, at the time, felt like more of a coincidence. We had just listed our first home for sale. And this one was listed on the open market at the same time. And it had not been sold for 13 years since that family had purchased it in 2003. So 13 years later, it came on the market at the same time as us selling our house and being prepared to move. And we actually, when I came and saw it for the first time for a tour as a buyer, it was really surreal. And of course, lots of tears. I was freaking out. I used to get butterflies pulling up the hill, seeing the house, all the candles in all the windows, and just that excited feeling as a child of like, I'm going to the big house on the hill and get to see all my family and celebrate. And that like pounding heart feeling was insane. But the crazy thing was when we left, we hadn't gotten any bites on our house. We were standing in the driveway here, and the realtor gets a call. We had actually pulled it from the market. The realtor gets a call. My buyers were watching this house, and why is it off the market? We're in Nana's driveway, and she gets that call while our previous home had been pulled from the market. I get goosebumps thinking about that.
Okay, so my question for you is that when you were in high school, of course, this house was sold. You said you were heartbroken, and then you thought you would buy it. That entire 13 years, were you thinking you would buy it, or had you kind of put that out of your head for a while?
I never thought I would be in a position to buy this home financially. I lived in Chicago for 5 years. I was young, and this is a big house on 16 acres. I thought it was going to be a retirement project.
Spoiler alert, it is.
Yes, it's a forever project. I really didn't think we would pull it off until we were much more established than we were at the time. But it never left my mind. It was sort of one of those homes that I'm an artist, so it would always be the house I would doodle and sketch, and so didn't forget about it by any means.
So you sold your old house, or you sold your first house, and then you bought this one, and then from there, something kind of cool happened, right?
Yeah, I used to never believe in spirits or ghosts. I'm a pretty logical, straightforward, black and white thinker. Everything has to make sense to me.
Sure.
So when things started happening here that I couldn't explain, that phone call in the driveway being the first of them, I've heard lots of other people describe supernatural experiences, and I thought, oh, that's great for you. I think it probably can be explained in another way. And here it happens not even in ways that are connected specifically to this house or a tangible experience. There's a few things that have happened that follow me outside of this house. That is the part that I really can't explain, sort of this serendipitous things come together in a way that I can't explain, or I can make conjectures, but it doesn't make any sense to me or probably anyone else that I describe it to.
And it started when you purchased this house?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Can you give us an example?
Yeah, what's the first thing? What was your first clue?
So we have this doorbell that has never worked. It, upon further investigation, was never even connected to an electrical source. So it's a mid-century brass doorbell over the basement stairs. There's a button out on the porch. At one point, I'm sure it worked, but never in the time that we toured, or just it never worked. But about a week after we moved in, we were getting settled and the kids were napping, and I was just unpacking some boxes, and the doorbell rang.
Ooh.
Just once, and that was it. And I was like, is somebody on the porch? There's something electrical happening. Later, I knew that wasn't even a possibility because it wasn't connected. But yeah, the doorbell just rang. I think it was kind of a welcome home.
Interesting. So nobody was on the porch pushing the button or anything. It just rang on its own.
No, I was the only one home, and like the kids were asleep in their little beds. And
I feel like I've had little things like that in my house where I'm like, well, that was strange. So what happens then? How do we compound these stories into we're in a situation?
Right. So at the time, I totally wrote it off. We're in an old house, old wiring is probably connected to something funky. Who knows? I completely write it off. And then the more I started kind of connecting the dots, I've always been really into family legacy. And on the other side of my family, there's a family farm that's been in the family for 100 years. And just researching and connecting myself to the generations who've gone before me. I happen to have a very personal connection here, but I think it's important. History has always been important to me so that we we learn from it and gain new insight. But here I have characters who were I'm a direct descendant of them. And so I get really into it and I start to kind of picture, well, what were the personalities like? What do they do for a living? And, who was so-and-so's daughter or mother-in-law? And I go down that rabbit hole of genealogy. So I started collecting, like I said, it was a museum's worth of an estate from when the home was built. I now have nearly all of the original bed sets, Eastlake bed sets, in all the bedrooms that they were in. I have old family photos, hand-painted bud vases. It was a really well-preserved collection of family history here at the time that the home was sold. And I remember choosing a few really specific pieces to save and not be dispersed and end up at auctions. To me, it's always sad to see things that they were special at some point, and then here they are in a pile. And what we can make up stories to go with it. And that's always fun. But for me, having those things that I can relate to my kids and say, this was Aunt Mamie's and she painted it in 1887. This is just really special. Or this was your great-grandmother's matchstick holder. It was made from pewter and it was a big deal for her to have this because they struggled to even have food. They had to grow it themselves and, raise cattle. I think it's important to pass those down, and stuff isn't necessarily important to me, but it happens to be the way that I can translate those stories to the next generation.
Right.
So it's why I'm so connected to the stuff of the house. And I started assembling and going around to family members that I knew had saved some things from the estate sale. And I now have a quite complete collection of Mamie's paintings. She died at a very young age. She was 27 in 1888. And I happen to have been born exactly 100 years later.
And how is she related to you?
She was my great-great-grandfather's sister.
Okay, got it. Sort of. That's a lot of grades.
I'm not a direct descendant of her, but her brother was my great-great-grandfather.
Gotcha. Okay. So she died young, you said 27, 28?
Yeah, so she was born here. There were 2 generations before her that built it. Then there was not really any family history aside from all of her possessions were very well preserved. They saved all of her school books and cute little doodles. She drew like mustaches and spectacles on historical figures in her school books from the 1800s. So I'm kind of developing this like personality and putting the pieces together of someone who might just be in a family tree to some people, and was able to collect a ton of the pieces that she painted. They're beautiful. They're very botanical, was her style. So I don't know if as I've come to terms with the fact that these are not just one-off stories, I've sort of developed this narrative that she chose me to investigate. And whether or not that's true, I know it sounds hokey because I used to be someone who didn't even believe in the supernatural occurrences. But really odd things would happen since I started collecting all of her possessions and the furniture that's come back to the home that was here since it was built.
So let's talk about some of those things.
A few of them tend to happen when we start to restore different rooms. I once had a flower pot that doors weren't open. It wasn't like there was a window open or something, and it just jumped off the buffet and crashed on the floor.
Cool.
Yeah. We were working on a different project, and there was wood clamps that had been on this table saw as a jig for probably 2 years. No one was around. All of a sudden, they just popped. They just snapped, clipped off, and fell off. They'd been there for 2 years.
Wow.
I think probably the oddest thing that, again, I mentioned, it sort of follows me. It doesn't necessarily just have a tangible experience here. My great uncle lives next door. He inherited half of the farm. And when he came to tour, he was really touched by how much I've put research into returning the house to original and honoring what its original intention was supposed to be. And he had some pieces that I didn't know existed, one of them being Mamie's portrait. I always wondered, what did she look like? Who is Mamie? And I'd just love to put a face with all of this narrative I'm gathering. And the other piece was her wedding announcement. I did not know that she had been married. She died very young. I never found much on her in my research. And so with that was the name of her husband on the wedding announcement. And it's an 1800s announcement that they were married on Christmas Day in 1888, and then when they would be home from their travels. And so I was able to see his name, Render Workman. Okay, I'm going to Google this guy. He happened to be a pretty notorious businessman in Holland, Michigan, which is about 30 minutes from us. So I found these excerpts, and it mentioned Mamie and this book someone had written. This book was not published widely. It was a research book. Someone self-published it. I couldn't get it on Amazon. It's not in any libraries. So I thought, well, okay, I'll table this. I'll do some more research later. The next weekend, we go to the Tulip Festival in Holland. I don't know if you have ever been to that. It's beautiful.
I haven't been, but I know exactly what you're talking about. Sure.
Yeah, just millions and millions of tulips everywhere. And so we go, it's Mother's Day weekend, and we're getting brunch, and there's a little antique store connected to it while we wait for our table. And all of a sudden, I go, this is the book about Render Workman on the shelf in the antique store. In the first booth we walk in.
Weird.
And this is the book that has excerpts about Mamie.
Wow. So of course you bought it.
Nah.
Yes. I was like, I don't care how much this is. I'm buying this book. It's the only one. And it's called The Gilded Hollander by Donald van Recken. Hopefully I'm saying that right. And it's just this little self-published book. There's only one in a historical museum in Holland. I haven't found it anywhere else, but I happened to come across it at the antique store the weekend after I learned this guy's name.
That is so wild.
Wow. Cool.
So I still have more research to do, but that was one of the ones I just had goosebumps instantly. I would have passed that easily, not ever tracking, okay, some Holland historic figure, a book about him, not interested, right? But I learned his name the weekend before.
So I have a question for you. This is one that I don't have a feeling about whatsoever. So when I ask you this question, I'm not attached to the answer that you're going to give to me about this. But do you believe in manifesting? Like, do you think that, I guess let me ask you this question in a more full way. Do you feel like Mamie is sort of, there's a conduit that's leading you two together, or that maybe you're manifesting these things and attributing that to her, or none of the above? This is something I'm not super familiar with, so I'm just asking it.
Yeah, it's a tricky question because I would say I've become more open-minded to whatever scenario is leading me to these, and the experiences that are a little bit more tangible. They happen sporadically, and yet at the same time, there seems to be an order to it. So my short answer is I don't know.
Okay.
My long answer is I'm open to it, and I'm open to all the different possibilities of how these happen. It's intriguing to me, and especially because none of it has been menacing or scary to me. It all seems very encouraging and almost supportive, if that makes sense. So I've just kind of opened myself up to the thought that, well, if I just keep looking for these and I keep being open, something really cool will happen.
Right. And how that's happening is of no consequence. It's just happening, and that's great.
Right. I don't know if I will ever know how it happens. I don't think I'm connected enough to the spirit world if that happens to be what's going on to know. But I would say some of those more tangible things tell me it's not just me manifesting it. If I had that much control, I'd like to manifest a few other things. But, a money tree in the backyard would be helpful.
Right. And I think that's why I've always resisted the idea of manifesting, because a lot of people have deep, sincere wants that don't come to fruition. So it seems a little like, well, why for some and why not for others? And it's not really a podcast topic probably for this show, but it's just something I've been thinking about and wondering how connected it is to this potential spirit world, that kind of thing. So, I don't know the answer.
I would be curious to see what other answers might be, I love listening every October, but if other people have a theory on that.
What do you think, Daniel? We'll ask you.
I think, I don't know what I think.
This is the first year you've been on the show during Ghost Story episodes, so I don't even know what you think about this sort of thing.
Yeah, like I've had similar kind of weird, like little things happen just over the years that I can't explain. And actually, when you were telling the story about finding the book, I had a very similar experience of somebody sent me the really nice thing about having a blog is that there's some sleuths out there who will like assemble you an entire Google Drive of documents about your house and then just send it to you and be like, I hope that's not creepy. And it's like, well, it is a little, but it's also like the best thing anyone's ever done. Thank you. And so,
Thanks for being creepy. I appreciate it.
right, like you had to figure out my address and then do all this research. Like you could have just asked. But anyway, I'm sure finding it is part of the fun. I digress. Point was, I was reading something and it was a death announcement or obituary, and it said where somebody was buried from the family that originally owned my house. And it's a beautiful cemetery in town, like a truly gorgeous, gorgeous cemetery. And it's really big. It just like goes on and on and on, rolling hills, tree. It's stunning. And I go just to like see the cemetery. And I walked right to the grave.
Really?
So like it was so creepy. Like I just walked right to it. And all of a sudden there it was, the family plot with everyone's names on it. And like in this huge place, it goes on for acres and acres. And I had no idea like where they would be. And I wasn't even looking. It was just there. So I don't know. So that was a parallel experience, I feel like. But so yeah, I don't know. I think manifesting, agreed. It's a weird concept and I'm not, I think it's complicated.
I was just going to say, I appreciate the concept of manifesting in terms of setting goals and then just constantly having it on the forefront of your mind is naturally going to lead to more results, I'll say. I would think that the purchase of this house would be along those lines, a manifestation of course, unless I'm looking for it to be listed or I'm not constantly checking in on it because it's in the forefront of my mind or being prepared to have a home listed and that sort of thing. The timing of it, I would say coincidence, manifestation. I could chalk it up to that. Some of the other things though, the doorbell, my kids sometimes say that they see doorknobs move and we're not upstairs and there's no one there.
I was just going to ask you about the kids because I feel like kids are the creepiest.
Kids and pets, they seem to have a sense for this sort of thing.
So my kids haven't had a whole lot of experiences that would be written off that way, other than they'll hear footsteps. They'll ask if we were awake at certain times. My oldest is the one who saw the doorknob turn and the door slightly open, and he said there weren't any windows open. He can be a little bit on the theatrical side, though, so sometimes I'm like, did you really see it? Or, I don't know, Bryce. My mother was staying here one night and she heard a male's voice loudly say her name. Everyone was asleep. She got up and walked around. She thought someone was in the house, but everyone was asleep. Sometimes I'll hear footsteps every so often.
I'm trying to think of like the classics, cold spots, shadows, smells. Yeah. Anything like that.
Yeah, definitely. So Nana's house always smelled like baked squash and percolating coffee. Now, I will say later on, I still use an old-fashioned percolator on the stovetop. So if that gets trapped in a closet here or there, I could totally explain that as I percolate coffee. But the smell was on an enclosed porch when we first toured the house. And then every so often at the holidays after there. So it really couldn't have been explained, especially the combination of squash and percolating coffee to me is just very specific. And I smelled that when we toured the house as buyers for the first time.
That's interesting.
Shadows. You asked about shadows, Daniel. And we were working on the butler's pantry. Again, it seems to be when we're doing projects. I kind of feel like some of the spirits tell me what to do with the house almost in these weird ways. And that particular time, I had just struggled with, how do I lay this out? How do I honor this space the best way? And it was the same day that the clamps jumped off of the table saw. And I saw a shadow out on the porch. And I just remember getting this overwhelming feeling of, I need to pause and not make any more plans for this room because I don't think I'm doing it the way she wants me to, she or he. And I remember telling my husband that, and he was like, "You're crazy. You just stress out about this, Amanda. That's not what it is." And I just remember thinking, like, I said out loud, "Please tell me if I'm not doing this the right way and show me what I'm supposed to do instead." Needless to say, I haven't moved farther. That was last month, so we're still at a pause.
Oh, we're still waiting. Okay, we're still waiting to hear on what the next step is. That's great.
I'm staying tuned. I've got a carriage house being built, so I was willing to take the pause. No big deal.
That's great. Well, this has been so interesting, Amanda. I love hearing these stories. Did you have any other questions, Daniel, that you wanted to ask?
Oh, I don't think so. I will humbly request updates as things occur because I love this story.
I haven't ever heard a story quite like yours. So this is a lot of fun. We've been doing ghost stories for several years, and there's always a lot of similarities. I find they're all interesting to me because even though some of the occurrences are very similar, still different house, different person's perception of what happened. But this has been really neat. I haven't ever talked to anybody who's bought their ancestral house and then sort of reconstructed life backwards and then is feeling these occurrences in present day. So that's really neat. I'm so glad you shared your story with us, Amanda.
Yeah, it's such a cool thing.
Well, thank you for having me. This has been super fun.
Thank you so much, Amanda. Nice to meet you.
Thank you for listening to True Tales from Old Houses, and thank you to Amanda, our spooky guest today.
To continue the conversation, join us on Facebook and Instagram at True Tales from Old Houses. You can follow Stacy at Blake Hill House or myself at Daniel Cantor.
And to learn more about everything we discussed in today's episode or request a transcript, visit truetalesfromoldhouses.com. Until next time.
Happy spooky season.
Shall we go out with ghostly noises?
Oh, absolutely.
Ooh.